Hello everyone, welcome to our business management class. So in the last day we have learned about the different theories of business ethics. Okay, so we have discussed the theory of justice and fairness by John Rawls. Okay, so now we are going to discuss the principle of justice. So it's a continuation of the theory of justice and fairness by John Rawls. So this principle of justice which says that there are basically two principles, that is equal liberty principle, okay, that is equal right or equal liberty principle, and also the equal opportunity principle. Okay, so these are the two principles. Principle of justice which includes the equal opportunity principle, at the same time the greatest equal liberty principle. Okay, so basically there are two principles. One, that each person should have equal rights to the most extensive liberties consistent with other people enjoying the same liberties, which means they should have the equal freedom, they should have the equal liberty. Okay, that is each and every person has the right to enjoy the equal liberties or equal freedom. Okay, that is the first principle. Then second principle is that it should be arranged so that they would be to everyone's advantage and arranged so that no person would be blocked from occupying any position, which means everyone should given the equal opportunities. Okay, so each and every person should get the equal opportunities to occupy their particular positions. So this principle which says that it should be arranged in such a way that everyone will be able to enjoy the advantage from occupying their positions, and they should not be blocked from occupying their position. Okay, so these are the two principles of justice, that is equal liberty principle and also this equal opportunity principle. Then next we are going to discuss the issues which is involved in the justice and fairness theory. Okay, so basically this Rawls has divided this various issues in this justice and fairness theory into three broad categories, that is distributive justice, then retributive justice or corrective justice, and finally the compensatory justice. Okay, so then first one ആണ് distributive justice. So this distributive justice, which means it refers to that which the society's institutions should ensure that the benefits and burdens are distributed among the society members in fair and just ways. ഓക്കെ, അതായത് ബെനിഫിറ്റ്സ് ആയിക്കൊള്ളട്ടെ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ബേർഡൻസ് ആയിക്കൊള്ളട്ടെ, അത് നമ്മൾ ഈക്വലി ഒരേപോലെ ജസ്റ്റ് ആൻഡ് ഫെയർ പ്രിൻസിപ്പിൾസ് ഫോളോ ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ട് വേണം നമ്മളത് ഡിസ്ട്രിബ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്യാനായിട്ട്. ഓരോ മെമ്പേഴ്സിനും തുല്യമായിട്ട് ഈക്വലി അത് നമ്മൾ ഡിവൈഡ് ചെയ്ത് കൊടുക്കണം, വെദർ ഇറ്റ് ഇസ് ബെനിഫിറ്റ്സ് ഓർ ബേർഡൻസ്. ഓക്കെ, സോ ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് ദി ഡിസ്ട്രിബ്യൂട്ടീവ് ജസ്റ്റിസ്, വിച്ച് മീൻസ് this theory or this concept which says that each and every society's institutions should ensure that the benefits or burdens are distributed among the society's members in such a way that fair and just principles follows. Okay, so whenever whenever the society institutions distributes this benefits and burdens in unjust ways, they are forced to um, change the institutions. Okay, that is the distributive justice. So in short, they should divide and distribute these benefits and burden in fair and just ways. Okay, so that is the first issue. Then second issue is that retributive justice or corrective justice. Okay, so this retributive justice or this corrective justice, which means that the punishments should be fair and just. Okay, so under this issue it says that the punishments should be fair and just. Okay, so before giving the punishments, they should take into consideration the relevant information such as the seriousness of the crime, the intent of the criminals, etc. Okay, so all these factors to be considered before making the punishments or before giving the punishments. Then third one is that compensatory justice. So this compensatory justice, which means under this issue it says that the people should be fairly compensated for the injuries. Okay, so here the people should be fairly compensated for their injuries by those who have injured them. So who all have given them injuries, they should give the proper compensation to that respective people. Okay, so this compensatory justice, which says that the compensation should be proportional to the loss which is inflicted on a person. Okay, so these are the three issues or three broad categories of issues which is involved in the justice and fairness, that is distributive justice, retributive or corrective justice, and finally the compensatory justice. Okay, then next we are going to discuss the strengths of the role theories. Okay, so this let me discuss or the strength and weaknesses of this John Rawls theory. Okay, so first we are going to discuss the strength of role theories. So first one is that it provides people with a specific tool to avoid any kind of bias. Okay, so this Rawls theory says that that is the theory of fairness and justice. So which says that the all the people should act in such a way that the fair and just manner. They should not be biased, or they should avoid all kind of personal bias and personal prejudices. Okay, so one of the strength is that people provide with a specific tool to avoid any bias. Then second one is that thanks to the veil of ignorance. So this veil of ignorance is the one of the principle of this theory of justice and fairness, which the basic purpose of that veil of ignorance was that it is to explore ideas about justice, morality, equality, and social status in a structured manner. Okay, so that is the second strength, that is thanks to the veil of ignorance. Then third one is that apart from these rights, and this Rawls theory also provides numerous opportunities. Rights are not at the same time, it also provides certain opportunities to the people. Okay. The next is it does not ignore the inequality. Okay. So even though it is saying that we should treat all the people equally, but this does not ignore the inequality. Okay, so strength of this philosophy includes it does not ignore inequality, which is a characteristic feature of a human society. നമ്മൾ എത്ര ഈക്വൽ ആവണം അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഈക്വൽ എല്ലാവരും ഈക്വൽ ആയിട്ട് കാണണം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാലും it is little bit difficult to ignore this inequality. Okay, so it is one of the feature of the human society. Okay, then next is people can focus on creating a society where inequality is a tool of this development. Okay, so this Rawls theory, which says that there is no need of diminishing, or there is no need of reducing this inequality, because people can focus on creating a society in which this inequality is a tool of development. So these are the strength of Rawls theory. Then next we are going to discuss the weaknesses of this Rawls theory. Okay, so weaknesses which includes equality is impossible. നമ്മൾ നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞു strength നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞു inequality എന്നുള്ളൊരു concept അവർ ignore ചെയ്യുന്നില്ല. So that means equality is impossible here. Then next is some people will inevitably accumulate more resources. ചില ആളുകൾക്ക് കൂടുതൽ resources accumulate ചെയ്യേണ്ടി വരും, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അത് use ചെയ്യേണ്ടി വരും. Okay, so even though we are saying that all resources are given to all people equally, or everyone has the right to enjoy the resources equally, even though we are saying that some people will be inevitably accumulate more resources, so it is one of the demerit. Then next is that Rawls' original position may have impact of duty, but the theory of justice ignores the same. Okay, so Rawls theory prakaram എന്താണ് they also have an impact on duty, or we can say that it is also consequentialist theory, but this theory of justice completely ignores the same. They ignore the consequences of all the actions, and they ignore the consequences of all the activities. Okay, then last is a group of people willing to live under principle, but it does not means that it is morally justified. Okay, so even though a group of people are willing to live, or they are willing to adjust with as per principle, it does not means that it is morally justified. എല്ലാം നന്നായി എന്ന് നമ്മളവിടെ പറയുന്നില്ല. Okay, ഒരു ഗ്രൂപ്പ് മാത്രം പ്രിൻസിപ്പൽസ് ഫോളോ ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ട് മാത്രം എന്താണ് എല്ലാം മോറലി ജസ്റ്റിഫൈഡ് ആണെന്ന് നമുക്ക് അവിടെ പറയാനായിട്ട് സാധിക്കില്ല. Okay, so these are the weaknesses and the strength of this Rawls theory. Then next we are moving to the Kant's categorical imperative. Okay, so we have learned this Kantianism theory under this deontological approach, okay, or theory. So this Immanuel Kant's other concept is that this categorical imperative. Okay, So this categorical imperative, which means it is the highest moral principle. So this categorical imperative is the highest moral principle. So morality is universal and the same for everyone. So everyone must admit that a law, if it is to be, has to carry absolutely necessity with it. Okay, which means this categorical imperative is a highest moral principle, and this categorical imperative is saying that the moral laws must be obeyed. Okay, so everyone should follow, or everyone should obey the rules, okay, and laws. So morality is the universal. In case of categorical imperative, it says that this, rationally speaking, this moral laws should be obeyed, or everyone are supposed to follow the laws. Okay, and when we act, we act on maxims or practical principles of actions. Okay, so we have to practically apply all the moral principles that we have learned. Okay, that is this categorical imperative. So this categorical imperative says that this moral laws must be obeyed, and also we should act on maxims or practical principles of actions. Okay, so we have to apply this moral principles in our action. Okay, so act only on that maxim through which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. Okay, which means this categorical imperative has basically the three aspects. That is, first one is universalization or universal law. That is, moral rules must be universal. Okay, so the three aspects or three forms of this categorical imperative, which includes, first one is that universal law, which means here it emphasizes that the need for moral rules to be universal. Okay, that means it can be applied in all areas or all aspects. Okay, so that is the first form. Then second one is that respect for rational beings as end in themselves. Okay, which means we have to treat each and every person, or we have to treat all human beings as free and equal members. We should treat them as the equal members. Okay, so that is the respect for rational beings as ending themselves. We have to treat our fellow beings, or we have to treat our human beings, all the human beings should be treated as free and equal members of the community. Then third one is that autonomy of the rational beings, which means we have to take into consideration that the consequences of our own actions not only affects ourselves, but also it will affect the others too. Okay, so we have to keep in mind that point. That means while we are performing an action, the consequence of action will affect everyone. Okay, it is not only affecting ourselves, but also it will affect the others too. That is the three forms of categorical imperative. First one is universal law. Then second one is respect for rational beings as end in themselves, and third one is this autonomy of the rational beings. Then next we are going to discuss the Rawlsian duty theory based ethics. Okay, so it is the another duty based theory. Okay, so this a fourth and most recent duty based theory is this Rawlsian duty theory based ethics, which is propounded by British philosopher, that is W.D. Rawls. Okay, so here this Rawls argues that our duties are part of this fundamental nature of the universe. Okay, so this Rawls, that is W.D. Rawls, which argues that our duties are part of the fundamental nature of the universe. So it's our responsibility or the obligations to perform all kind of activities, or to perform all our obligations. Okay, so this Rawls argues that our duties are part of the fundamental nature of the universe. So here it basically includes the prima facie duties and actual duties. Okay, so prima facie duties and this actual duties. So Adila, prima facie duties, which means these duties are self-evident and obvious duties. So these duties can be known to be correct if a person thinks about them and understands them. Okay, so prima facie is a Latin expression which is meaning on first appearances or by first instance. Okay, so prima facie is a Latin expression meaning that on first appearance or by first instance. Okay, so this prima facie duties are the duties which are self-evident, and these are the obvious duties. So these duties can be known to be correct if a person thinks about them and understands them. So basically, this Rose has listed the 7 prima facie duties. The first one is that fidelity. Fidelity, which means the duty to keep promises. Okay. So second one is this reparation. Reparation, which means the duty to compensate others when we harm them. Okay. Then third one is gratitude, which means duty to thank those who help us. Then next is justice. Justice, which means the duty to recognize merit. Then beneficence, which means the duty to improve the conditions of others. We have the duty to improve the conditions of others. Okay. Then self improvement, which means the duty to improve our virtues and intelligence. And finally, the duty to not injure others. We should not make any kind of injuries to others. Okay, so these are the 7 prima facie duties. Okay, then next is actual duties. So there are two type of duties, that is actual duties and this prima facie duties. Prima facie duties, which means the duties which duties on the first appearances or duties by first instance. Okay, then actual duties, which means one is morally bound to perform it. Okay, so actual duties are the duties that is one is morally bound to perform it. So these are the two types of duties which comes under the Rosian duty theory based ethics. Then next is let us discuss the strength and weaknesses of this duty-based ethics. So this strength of duty-based ethics, which includes, it emphasizes the value of every human beings, which means we should give equal respect to all human beings. Okay. The second one is that it says some acts are always wrong. So this duty-based ethics, which gives information that some things should never be done. Okay, no matter what good consequences they produce. Okay, അതിന്റെ ആ ഒരു ആക്ഷന്റെ കോൺസിക്വൻസസ് ഗുഡ് ആയാൽ പോലും ചില കാര്യങ്ങൾ നമ്മൾ ചെയ്യാൻ പാടില്ലാത്ത കാര്യങ്ങളുണ്ട്. സോ we should never be done. Okay, then next is it deals with this intentions and motives. That means that is which says that this consequentialist theories does not pay direct attention to whether an act is carried out with good or bad intentions. Okay, so that most people think these are highly relevant to moral judgments. So this duty based ethics ൽ പറയുന്നത് അതിന്റെ മറ്റൊരു strength ആണ്, it deals with this intentions and motives. Okay, so consequentialist theories നമ്മൾ പറയുന്ന അതെന്താണ് പറയുന്നത്, here the action can be said as the good or wrong based upon the consequences or the outcomes of the actions, right? Okay, but here most of the people will be highly relevant to the moral judgments. അവരുടെ motives അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അവരുടെ intentions ബേസിസിലായിരിക്കും നമ്മൾ ആ ഒരു ആക്ടിവിറ്റി റൈറ്റ് ഓർ റോങ് എന്ന് നമ്മൾ ഡിസൈഡ് ചെയ്യേണ്ടത്. Okay, the next is it provides certainty. That means consequentialist theory most of time which provides degree of uncertainty, because the consequences or outcomes of actions are unpredictable. In case this consequences or the outcomes of actions are unpredictable, there will be a high degree of uncertainty. Okay, but sometimes it will provide a degree of certainty when these consequences are easily predictable. If these consequences are easily predictable, or if these outcomes are easily predictable, it will provide the certainty. Okay, so these are the strength of duty-based ethics. Then next is weaknesses of duty-based ethics, which includes absolutist. That is, duty-based ethics are the absolute rules. Okay, so it always says about what are our duties and we have to perform all actions as per our duties. So it provides the absolute rules. And also the second one is that duty based ethics does not deal with the cases where the duties are in conflict, or there are no way to resolve the moral duties when they comes into conflict with each others. Okay, so these are the strength and weaknesses of this duty based ethics. Then next we are going to discuss the different views of business ethics, which we have already discussed before. Different views of business ethics le varuna moonu important views are separatist views, then second one is this Unitarian views, and third one is this integration views. Okay, so separatist view ennu vechayinal adile നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞു and the basic aim is profit maximization. Okay, the basic aim of business is the profit maximization. So whenever we start to follow the business ethics, ethical values, there will be a conflict between this uh, profit maximization and this ethical values. Okay, so the first one are affects the objectives of business. So here every business should concentrate on profits. So the main aim or the ultimate aim of business is the profit maximization. Hence, the opponents of this business ethics says that ethics and morality does not forms a part of business. Okay, then second one is that it will leads to conflicts, which means if ethics is applied in the business organizations, there will be a conflict between this ethics and the profitability. Okay, the third one is that social values dominate over the business values. Okay, which means that here, if this ethical values are given an opportunity to enter into this business areas, gradually it will start to dominate. That is, gradually this social values will start to dominate over this business values, which means the ultimate aim of organization of business is the profit maximization. But whenever we give more importance for the social values or ethical values, we may fail to fulfill our business values or business objectives. Okay, so ultimately this business should focus on achieving its economic objectives such as the profit maximization, wealth maximization, etc. Okay, the next is it will disorder the process of corporate decision making. That means each and every managers should act in such a way that they should serve best to the employer's interest. Okay, that is the fourth point, that is it will disorder the process of corporate decision making. Okay, they should each and every person should work in such a way that they serve best to the employer's interest. Okay, the next is that it will create the adverse impact on the competitive advantage, which means the ethical conduct of business will which it will gradually increases the cost, and as this cost for the products and services are increased, it will reduces the demand of products. Naturally it will lowers the profit of the business firms, thereby it will affects the or thereby it will negatively or adversely affects the competitive advantage. Okay, so this ethical conduct of business will increases the cost. By increasing the cost, it will lower the demand of the product, and by lowering this demand, it will reduces the profit of the business firms, and gradually it will provides a negative impact or adverse impact on this competitive advantage. Okay, the next one is that it affects the legitimacy of the business. Okay, so this legitimacy of this business, which means what is legally okay, it is morally also okay. Okay, so legitimacy, which means here it means that what is legally okay is also morally okay. So accordingly, this ethics is considered as identical to law. That means this Adam Smith and Milton Friedman, which says that we should follow all kind of legal rules and obligations and legal rules and regulations. Okay, so these are the different views of business ethics. Then the other two views, which includes the Unitarian view and the integration view, which we have already discussed before. Then the last topic is this code of ethics. See, the code of ethics, which means it's the statement of norms and beliefs to be followed by employees of an organization. Okay, so this code of ethics, which means the general rules, regulations, and beliefs to be followed by the employees of an organization. So it's a statement which is showing the corporate principles, ethics, code of conduct, rule of conduct, etc., code of practice, etc. Okay, so all the persons who are connected to that particular organization are supposed to follow this norms and beliefs. Okay, that is the code of ethics. So the examples of code of ethics, which includes the honesty, then that means the each and every ethical executives should be honest. Then integrity. Okay, they should demonstrate this personal integrity, and the next is promise keeping and trustworthiness. So all the executives should be uh, should keep their promises, and uh, they should be of very frank and worthy of trust. Okay, the next is loyalty, then fairness, then concern for others. We have to take into consideration the viewpoints of others. Then law abiding, which means all the ethical executives are forced to follow the rules and regulations and all kind of laws. Then commitment excellence. Okay, which means they should excel, or they should reflect their excellence in performing their duties. Okay, the next is leadership, then reputation and morale. That means each and every ethical executives should try to protect and build the company's good reputation and morale. Okay, the next is accountability. That means all ethical executives are accountable to their senior members, or they are accountable to their managers. Okay, so these are the different examples of code of ethics. Thank you.